Time is life's greatest capital. You can recover lost money, replace possessions, rebuild health. But the minutes that slip through your fingers are gone forever. When I was young, I didn't understand that. I treated hours like loose change, tossing them away on distractions, idle talk, or aimless activity. It wasn't until Earl Shaw said to me, "Jim, time is your capital. Spend it wisely," that I woke up. I had thought of money as capital, but Shoaff was right. Time is the seedbed of everything. How you invest your hours determines the quality of your harvest. That meant the blame or credit for my life rested with me. Not with fate, not with luck, not with family inheritance. I had 24 hours just like everyone else. The only difference between mediocrity and mastery was how those hours were used. That realization changed everything about how I approached my days. I began to see time like farmland. Every day was a plot of soil. You could plant good seed. Learning, discipline, building relationships, or you could scatter weeds. Excuses, gossip, wasted hours. You could also neglect it, and neglect always favors weeds. The harvest will come no matter what. The only question is, will it be weeds or wheat? A billionaire doesn't get 25 hours, and a beggar doesn't get 23. Everyone receives the same allotment. That fairness is life's greatest gift and greatest test. The rich, the poor, the educated, the uneducated, we all stand equal at the clock's edge. The only separation is how we convert hours into progress. If I invested my time, it multiplied like money in the bank. Reading, journaling, practicing, all compounded. If I wasted time, it vanished with nothing in return. That's why I began to guard hours like treasure. They were the raw material of my future. But here's the trap. Most people act like they have endless time. They speak of someday as if it's guaranteed. But someday is not on the calendar. I used to say, I'll start when I have more money. I'll study when I have more energy. I'll build my business when conditions are better. Later never came. Shoaff shook me and said, "Jim, don't count on someday. Get serious today." That's when I saw how many dreams I had buried under excuses. The future isn't a guarantee. It's a possibility. The present is all you truly own. Time is always moving. Every hour spent is an hour lost. If you don't use it, it doesn't pause. It disappears. That's why urgency is the secret to achievement. Not panic, but purpose. Living each day as if it matters because it does. One wasted day may not seem like much, but string together 100 and you've lost a season. I discovered another truth. Time exposes priorities. We say, my family is important, my health is important, my goals are important. But your calendar tells the truth. Show me your schedule, and I'll show you what you value. That realization was painful. I said I valued growth, but I spent hours on television. I said I valued health, but I skipped exercise. I said I valued wealth, but I failed to invest time in learning how to earn it. My schedule and my words didn't match. So I changed it. I put family time in ink, not pencil. I set appointments for exercise. I blocked time for reading and reflection. When my schedule began to match my values, my life began to match my goals. Time is the most honest auditor. It shows you what you care about without words. Talk is cheap, but hours are priceless. And here's a lesson about opportunity. Time turns small windows into open doors for those who act quickly. I learned that opportunities are often fleeting. They don't last forever. If you're not prepared, they pass you by. When I first began speaking, I was terrified. I didn't think I was ready. But I said yes when the chance came, and it changed my life. That moment taught me to act when time presents an opening. The prepared grow into it. The unprepared shrink from it. That's why growth is essential. So when time delivers an opportunity, you're ready to step through. Time rewards the ready, not the hesitant. Procrastination is the thief of destiny. You may think you're saving time by waiting, but really you're losing it. The longer you wait, the fewer chances remain. And eventually the clock runs out. Time waits for no one. And that truth should light a fire in you. Next, time is the great equalizer, but it is also the great revealer. Everyone receives the same 24 hours, yet look around and you'll see radically different results. Why? Because time, when invested wisely, multiplies results, and when squandered, multiplies regret. I had to learn this myself. I used to think success belonged to the lucky or the talented. Then I realized it belonged to those who respected time. The top producers in any field don't get more hours. They get more from their hours. They treat an hour like a brick, laying it carefully in the wall of their future. Others treat an hour like a feather, letting the wind blow it away. Shove told me, Jim, the way you use your time reveals the kind of person you are. That statement shook me, because I saw how careless I had been. My time reflected my neglect. That meant my future would too. So I began to track it. I started carrying a little notebook, writing down how I spent each hour. It was shocking. I found wasted gaps of time that I could never account for. Moments of distraction, idle talk, wandering thoughts. Once I put it on paper, I couldn't lie to myself. I had to face the truth. My time wasn't being stolen. It was being wasted by me. That was the day I decided to budget time the way people budget money. If I could account for every dollar, I could account for every hour. And when I did, my productivity doubled. Suddenly, I could see where my hours went, and I could direct them toward what mattered. That's how growth begins, with awareness. You can't change what you won't track. Once you see it, you can shape it. And once you shape it, time begins to serve you instead of slipping away. Another principle I learned is that time must be valued in seasons. There's a time for sowing, a time for growing, a time for harvesting. If you're in the season of sowing but expect a harvest, you'll be frustrated. If you're in the season of learning but expect earnings, you'll quit too soon. Understanding seasons gave me peace. It allowed me to be patient when results weren't immediate, because I knew the season I was in. When I was in my 20s, my job was to learn, to plant seeds of discipline, to practice habits. The harvest would come later. Too many people demand harvest before they've sown enough. But nature doesn't work that way, and neither does life. Respect the season you're in. Plant heavily in spring, tend carefully in summer, harvest joyfully in fall, and rest wisely in winter. Get the seasons right, and time will reward you. And here's the paradox of time. Urgency and patience must walk together. You must live with urgency because hours are limited. Don't waste today waiting for tomorrow, but you must also live with patience because results take time. Urgency gets you started. Patience keeps you steady. Without urgency, you never begin. Without patience, you never finish. I used to rush everything, wanting results overnight. When they didn't come, I quit. But Shove reminded me, Jim, overnight success is a myth. Success takes seasons. That truth grounded me. I began to act quickly, but expect results slowly. I planted with urgency and harvested with patience. And that balance gave me peace. I could rest in the process, knowing that time when respected always delivers. Not instantly, but eventually. And that's the secret. Urgency for the day, patience for the years. Respect both, and you'll live wisely in the flow of time. Next, time is life's greatest test because it asks one question every day. What will you do with me? And your answer determines everything else. You can't cheat time, you can only exchange it. Every hour is traded for something. Progress, pleasure, neglect, or regret. That's why I began to think of time as a currency. Money in the pocket is only potential. It becomes powerful when you spend or invest it. Time is the same. Each day you're handed 24 golden coins, and by midnight they're gone. You can't store them. You can't save them. You can only decide how to use them. The tragedy is that many people spend their coins on distractions that leave them empty, while others invest them in disciplines that create wealth, wisdom, and strength. Time never discriminates. It simply multiplies what you give it. Invest foolishly and you reap weeds. Invest wisely and you reap abundance. I remember when I started to treat my hours like treasure, my whole life changed. I stopped saying yes to everything and started saying yes only to what mattered. That meant learning to say no. No to gossip, no to wasted evenings, no to people who drained my energy without adding value. It wasn't easy. People called me rigid, even unfriendly. But I wasn't being unfriendly. I was being faithful. Faithful to my goals, faithful to my future. Earl Schoaf told me, Jim, don't let minor things crowd out the major things. And he was right. Time can be stolen not by big disasters, but by little distractions. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and suddenly the day is gone. The wise learn to guard their hours the way a jeweler guards diamonds. If time is priceless, treat it that way. Not casually, but carefully. Your future deserves nothing less. Time also teaches perspective. In youth, hours feel infinite. You think you'll always have tomorrow, next year, another chance. But as years pass, you realize how fast the seasons move. I looked up one day and a decade had vanished. That's when urgency deepened in me. I didn't want to drift through another 10 years. I wanted to design them. I wanted to fill them with growth, with contribution, with progress. You see, time will pass whether you use it or not. The clock doesn't stop because you hesitate. That's why drifting is so dangerous. You end up at a destination you never chose. The key is design. Design your days, design your habits, design your future. If you don't design it, time will design it for you. And weeds don't need permission to grow. Intentionality is the difference between regret and reward. Use time with intention, and it becomes your ally. And here's the greatest gift of time. It equalizes opportunity. You may not have wealth, education, or connections, but you have time. What you do with it determines everything else. I started as a poor farm boy with no college degree. But I invested my time in reading, listening, practicing, learning, and slowly I changed my life. Time gave me the chance to rewrite my story, and it will do the same for you. Nobody can take your hours. They can only distract you from them. Guard them fiercely, and they'll build the life you desire. Waste them carelessly, and they'll vanish into regret. Time is both the sternest master and the fairest friend. Respect it, and it rewards you with harvest. Neglect it, and it punishes you with weeds. Every day asks the same question. What will you trade me for? Answer wisely, because your future is buying whatever you choose today. Next, time is the substance of life, and it measures what you truly value. You can tell a person's priorities not by what they say, but by how they schedule. A man may say his family is important, but if he spends every evening staring at a television and no evenings with his children, the truth is revealed. A woman may say her health is important, but if she never schedules exercise or proper rest, the truth is revealed. Time doesn't lie. It is the most honest mirror we have. That realization forced me to confront my own inconsistencies. I said I valued growth, yet my calendar showed hours of distraction and very little study. I said I valued success, yet my days were scattered. Earl Schoaf asked me once, Jim, if I looked at your week, would I see your values or your excuses? That question changed how I viewed time forever. I began to treat my calendar as sacred ground. I blocked time for reading. I blocked time for health. I blocked time for relationships. And once it was written in ink, I treated it as unbreakable. That small discipline created big change. My days gained structure, my mind gained focus, and my life gained momentum. Too many people let life schedule them instead of scheduling life. They react instead of design. But time rewards design. The hours are the same, but the outcomes are not. I learned that if I didn't fill my time with the things that mattered, it would be filled with things that didn't. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does a calendar. Idle hours get filled with weeds by default. The only way to prevent it is to plan. Intentionality turns empty hours into productive ones, and productive hours into a life of progress. Another lesson time taught me is the cost of neglect. Neglect is easy, and its penalty is hidden. Skip a workout today, no big deal. Skip reading tomorrow, no disaster. Delay saving money, no immediate pain. But let neglect compound, and it delivers regret with interest. That's why regret weighs tons while discipline weighs ounces. Every hour neglected is a debt you'll eventually pay. I paid some of those debts myself. Years of careless living left me behind. But once I understood the principle, I reversed it. I let discipline compound instead of neglect. A little effort each day, a little reading, a little practice, a little journaling. The payoff wasn't immediate, but it was inevitable. Over months and years, discipline built a life neglect could never match. The harvest came not from what I did occasionally, but from what I did consistently. Time always multiplies what you plant. And here's the wisdom of time. It forces you to choose between the urgent and the important. The urgent is loud, demanding attention now. The important is quiet, patiently waiting. If you don't control your time, the urgent will crowd out the important. I used to spend entire days chasing urgent but trivial tasks, thinking I was productive. Then I'd look back and realize I had ignored what truly mattered. Shoaff reminded me, Jim, don't let minor things steal major time. That phrase became a compass. I learned to ask, is this important or just urgent? And I began to give priority to the important. My health, my family, my goals, my growth. The urgent still shouted, but I trained myself to listen to the quiet call of the important. That shift saved me years of wasted effort. Because in the end, life rewards the important, not the urgent. Next, time is a teacher, and one of its greatest lessons is perspective. When you're young, an hour feels endless. A summer seems like a lifetime. But as you grow older, the years seem to accelerate. 10 years can vanish in a blink. That's when you realize the urgency of design. You can't afford to drift. If a decade can disappear while you're distracted, imagine what 2 or 3 decades can do. I remember looking back on my 20s and realizing how many hours I had wasted before I met Earl Shoaff. It shook me. I promised myself I wouldn't waste my 30s and 40s the same way. And that's when I started living by the principle of intentional time. Every season counts. You can't control how fast time moves, but you can control how well you use it. That shift in thinking turned years from something that slipped away into something I could build upon. Another gift of perspective is gratitude. When you value time, you stop taking days for granted. You begin to appreciate mornings as opportunities, not burdens. You see evenings as chances to reflect, not just to collapse. Time becomes precious when you recognize its limits. Each day is a gift. 24 golden hours deposited in your account. Spend them foolishly, they're gone. Spend them wisely, they compound into legacy. That's why I began practicing gratitude at the close of every day. I'd write down what I was thankful for, what I had learned, what progress I had made. It kept me from living thoughtlessly. Gratitude slows you down enough to notice life while it's happening. Otherwise, you miss it, and time slips by unnoticed. Time is fleeting, but gratitude makes it rich. It turns ordinary minutes into meaningful moments, and that shift alone can change the way you experience life. Time also demands balance. You can't give all your hours to one pursuit and expect a healthy life. I once poured every moment into building income, but I neglected health and relationships. When I looked up, I saw the imbalance. Wealth is empty if you trade it for broken health. Success is hollow if you buy it with a broken family. That's why growth in time management means learning to allocate wisely. Work deserves hours, but so does family. Discipline deserves time, but so does rest. I had to learn to put boundaries around my time so that each area of life received attention. Balance doesn't mean equal. It means appropriate. It means giving the right time to the right thing at the right moment. And when you do, life feels richer, fuller, more satisfying. Neglect balance, and time punishes you with regret in the very areas you ignored. And here's something profound. Time turns small acts into legacies. Reading 10 pages a day doesn't seem like much. Writing a journal entry takes minutes. Exercising for half an hour feels minor. But multiply those over decades, and you have wisdom, history, and health that most people only dream about. Legacies are not built in a day. They're built daily. Time magnifies the small. It rewards the consistent. That's why I say don't despise small beginnings. Don't overlook tiny disciplines. They may not look like much in a single hour, but given enough time, they shape who you are. The secret of success isn't in extraordinary events, it's in ordinary habits practiced consistently over years. Time turns those habits into mountains. The question is never whether time will pass. The question is whether you'll let it pass by default or by design. Because only design creates the legacy worth leaving. Next, time is the currency of achievement, but it is also the currency of character. What you do with your hours shapes not just what you have, but who you become. If you spend your time on distractions, you become distracted. If you spend it on excuses, you become excuse-driven. If you invested in learning, discipline, and contribution, you become wise, strong, and respected. Time molds identity. That's why I say don't just ask, what am I doing with my time? Ask, what am I becoming with my time? That question can stop you in your tracks. Years ago, I asked myself that very thing, and I didn't like the answer. I was becoming lazy, undisciplined, unfocused. That was the day I began to change. Because once you see that time is shaping you, you realize you must shape it back. Otherwise, you drift into someone you never intended to be. Time also teaches stewardship. You don't own it. You manage it. Every day you're entrusted with 24 hours. At midnight, the account resets. If you squander it, you can't roll it over. That makes time the most precious of all resources. Treat it with respect. I began to live by appointments with myself. Study time was scheduled. Family time was scheduled. Reflection time was scheduled. Not because I wanted to be rigid, but because I wanted to be faithful. Earl Shaw once told me, Jim, either you run the day or the day runs you. I discovered that truth the hard way. The days I drifted, the day took me wherever it wanted. But the days I designed, I controlled my outcomes. Time management isn't about squeezing more tasks into a day. It's about ensuring the important tasks actually happen. Without design, life defaults to distraction. With design, it moves toward destiny. Another lesson is this: time respects preparation. Many people wait for opportunity, but opportunity waits for preparation. Time rewards those who are ready. I remember being asked to give a speech when I was young. Fear almost made me decline, but I had been studying and writing in my journals. Because I had invested hours in preparation, I could rise to the occasion. That moment launched a career I never dreamed of. If I hadn't invested the time earlier, the chance would have slipped by. That's why I say treat preparation as if the opportunity is already on its way. Because it is. When time delivers the moment, you'll either rise or shrink, depending on how you've used the hours before. Opportunity favors the prepared. If you waste time now, you'll miss your moment later. If you invest time now, your future self will thank you for being ready when it mattered most. And let's finish this thought with legacy. Time is temporary, but its effects are permanent. The way you spend your hours echoes into the lives of others. Children remember how you used your time with them. Friends remember whether you showed up. Colleagues remember whether you delivered. And history remembers whether you made a contribution. That's why I urge people to think beyond income and success. Think about significance. What story will your time tell when you're gone? Did you use it selfishly, or did you invest it to lift others? Did you waste it on comfort, or did you spend it on growth? Time is the storyteller of your life, and every day you hand it a new page to write. When the book is finished, let it read of a life well lived, of hours invested wisely, of seasons respected, of opportunities seized. That is the true philosophy of time.